Welcome everyone, Simon here from the Whales of Wall Street XDC XinFin network video for you today. Before we go into that one, don't forget to go through all the other videos on the channel and smash that subscribe button if you haven't done so already. Welcome to the channel if you're new. Welcome back if you are one of the existing whales out there. Absolutely brilliant to have you all here. Back into the flow of some videos here. It's been a mega busy week with work and stuff and a load of other Web3 developments going on as well. But guys, I'm going to go straight into this one because this is actually quite significant. We've seen the price fluctuation of XDC over the last few days and people asking like why that might be, etc, etc. One of the key areas I wanted to focus on is this. So this is Business Wire promoting this article, but this is very interesting. So XDC Network, which is essentially powering Trade Finex Tech Limited, which we'll go into a bit more detail in a second, but basically that is this here, Trade Finex, powered by XDC Protocol. This has just announced, in the last few days, the integration, if you like, the partnership with SBI Group. Now, SBI Group or SBI Holding, I think it's worth maybe $4 or $5 billion, something around that region. In terms of yen, I mean, it's phenomenal. But this is really interesting, this development, because the Japanese market is absolutely huge, as many people know. But of course, we always look for really good pinpoints in these projects and technologies moving forward as they collaborate, as they build these functionalities, as they build the integrations with existing companies around the world. And particularly when we're talking about trade finance or finance in general across the world, which is absolutely massive in the multi trillions of dollars worth of value. We argue many times in the previous videos that we've done about the significance of trade finance. We can talk about that in this instance here. This is just, by the way, like global trade finance, $73 billion, but this is not including other areas of what we're trying to achieve in the near future. By the way, these numbers fluctuate, but what's really interesting is one of the recent update events that XDC was a big part of. This one here, highlights from the tokenization and blockchain event, quite recent, I think it was last week. You can see just this screenshot of one of the screen presentations here. It's nice to see some of the other brands that we know, like Storks, etc., involved as well. That looks like an Impel logo to me on the right side. Obviously, many partners of XDC in general. Drivers of blockchain adoption, trillions in value. So trade finance, they got as in the brackets $1 trillion. That's probably more reflective, to be honest, as to what some of the statistics and some of the predicted valuations will be in the near future. I think it's already near this mark anyway. But the point being is that this is just trade finance. You've got loads of other areas that blockchain can ascertain itself to. Real estate is something we talk about a lot. Securities, financing and collateral, particularly through loans and those kind of things. Can't quite read that one, but corporate something, sovereign debt, and private equity and venture capital. So there's loads of areas that blockchain can really focus on, and certainly something that XDC or through Trade Finex can really operate itself with. Andre Custerman talks about this a lot in his multiple articles and conversations that he has across the board. But my point being, looping that back round, is this infiltration here of the SBI holding aspect. This is a huge partnership, a huge opportunity to really push the boundaries and enter a significant market here, particularly on the trade spectrum of things, and particularly here, partnership with the SBI VC Trade. Now, sometimes it's easy to have these articles come out, but what I actually did here for you guys, because I'm so nice, is I went to the SBI Holdings and I translated this myself. That's a complete lie. I just pressed the translate button and it's gave me all this very interesting detailed information. To the point, guys, SBI VC Trade have even created their dedicated XDC network related partnership page, which is absolutely incredible. The opportunity to start trading XDC directly as well. This is through one of the SBI platforms. This is quite significant, guys, because the SBI Holdings, they don't mess about. There's a few other tokens that they've added recently. I think Oasis possibly was added quite recently as well, amongst a few others. And you can see, in general, most of these are very, very top-notch projects and technologies out there, to be honest. So very interesting to see that development and to see this really interesting partnership and integration. Okay, so just here, 2 years on the road, whilst the SBI Group is investing in US company R3, big shout out there. I saw news that XDC will be used as a payment token for our free quarter in early 2021. 2 years later, in May 2023, SBI VC was able to conclude a partnership agreement with XDC Network. That's coming from the managing director of SBI VC Trade.co Limited. So that's really interesting to see this development, guys. It's quite massive, really. And there's just a couple of points that I wanted to pull out here. So this is the president. Forgive me if I've got this completely wrong pronunciation, but Fuminori Ozaki, referred to as the company which operates crypto asset exchange business SBI, will start operating domestic. By the way, this is translated, so it sounds a bit weird. We are pleased to announce that we will start handling the first XDC. This time we will support buying and selling at the sales office, reserve service, and coin lending service. As a result, we will handle a total of 17 crypto assets. Oh, there we go. We mentioned Oasis. I think one of them, there's a few others on there as well. So it's a really big, powerful statement from them there. And here again, mentioning, this is the big point here about trade finance, guys. The XDC network is a blockchain that specializes in enterprises such as companies and financial institutions with the aim of improving the efficiency of trade finance, which is said to be worth 2,000 trillion yen annually. That's quite a lot in terms of billions and trillions as well, anyway, in general, when you convert that to pounds or dollars. So obviously going to that point where we're really enhancing the development of tokenized assets around the world, of multiple different industries and sectors and areas, and particularly trade finance. We've done so many videos on this. I'll leave some links to some at the end of this video, because it is massively powerful. You're talking about the technological advancement of not just the money itself, but anything and everything in between that. The algorithm, the data, the introduction of AI, everything. And I think what kindly brings that nicely together, which is what I was reading here from the JP Morgan, one of the most recent documents that they've released, particularly around payments in general around the world. I want to just enforce this point here in this paragraph. We talk about 5G advances, artificial intelligence, quantum computing, and blockchain. Of course, this then relates heavily to the likes of the other things that they mentioned here: Internet of Things, connected cars, scalable and augmented and virtual reality. These are all new technologies and markets. So when we think about this, and particularly in this interest of Internet of Things, the connection of cars, the connection of data, smart contracts, artificial intelligence in the form of data algorithm. This could be how you purchase things that then funnels down all the way to the point of the actual supply mechanism and where that's harvested, if it's crops, for example, or manufactured, if it's a product or a material that's been created, all based on supply and demand. But instead of going with forecasts, it's just done in an automated fashion, of which you need to have transactions, i.e. the transfer in action, i.e. information passing, all of these things working simultaneously at multitudes of transactions per second, which is why when we talk about scalability and the ability of a network to appease X amount of transactions per second, this is where it becomes really crucial. A lot of people, and rightly so, because it's still early days and people are still learning and stuff. For me, even me personally, when I was learning about this many years ago, I was always focused on the thousands of transactions per second that the networks or the blockchains can formulate and do, but actually only sort of focusing on the fact that, that must be related purely to financial transactions, whether that's from chain to chain or me buying something, can it handle that? But actually, which we've covered in a multitude of videos, anything and everything that moves within this entire ecosystem, all these things that are mentioned here, everything, the movements, the behavior, the data, the artificial intelligence spectrums as well, the algorithms of everything, Wi-Fi devices talking to each other and maybe purchasing things or doing things or actions based on what you're doing or asking it to do or what it's doing automatically, connected cars, all of this stuff, guys, every single element of it will be classed as a transaction, a transfer of an action. That's where it comes from. And that's the point being here, that when we look at the trade finance market being so big, so huge from a revenue perspective, but actually in the nitty-gritty bits of it, when you're really scaling down to understand like how that flow works, how the processes work, when you go and buy something in the shop, that obviously tells a system within that shop that needs to be replaced, but then that flows back to the people who are either selling it into you or distributing it to say, we need more of this stuff, and the volumes are kicking in because it's seasonal, because it's in demand because of the advertising, the marketing, whatever it is. It trails all the way back, guys, to the transportation of it. That could include lorries, planes, trains, ships, whatever, all the way back to the source of manufacturing or producing of it. And that whole entire system is quite a lot of manual processing, albeit a lot of it has become more digital over time, especially the last 10 years. But now we're going into this new fruition aspect that actually everything talks to each other simultaneously. And instead of waiting 1 or 2 weeks for a forecast or that to be done, it's already automatically doing it. And because the algorithm AI data kicking in, it then forces that to be even faster and can work out its own trends ahead of time. You don't even need people in the next few years for all this kind of processing, supply chain management, buying management, selling management, all this stuff. And that's the point, is that XDC network, and this is not just applied to them, I'm not just saying this is the best one or this is the only one. We know there's loads of chains, we know there's loads of networks, but XDC, certainly the last few years, and especially when it did its rebrand and its focus to being the XDC Foundation and this Trade Finex situation as well, is really honing in and focusing in on, yes, it's got a hybrid blockchain format, so it can apply to wholesale and retail users, whether that's now or in the near future, large enterprises, you name it. Point is that it can really, really delve into a market that is significantly huge. So a lot of people always ask, like, why is the XDC price so low? Well, you've got to understand, obviously, like, there's the supply of XDC, how much of that is there, but also understand like how early in the process it is, because they've just recently announced their 4-year anniversary of the mainnet launch. Now, in the grand scheme of things of technology, yes, of course you get loads of companies out there that, you know, hyper growth within a year or two and the share prices go up significantly, blah, blah, blah. But in some instances, we've got to understand that the blockchain technology in general, albeit arguably, has been around since the 80s. If you look at it in the proper historic data, you could argue that its first proper utility or creation in 2007 with Bitcoin, not just as a currency, but actually as the blockchain itself, the identifiable blockchain, and then all the others that followed that, we're still not really fully using them. They're being definitely integrated, obviously, and slowly but surely happening. Ethereum is a great example because pretty much everything is built on it, whether it's directly on there as a layer 0 or it's done as an EVM, Ethereum virtual machine, which is something where the chains build on top of that. And a lot of the networks, you could argue like Quant, for example, XDC has kind of done something similar with XDC, I think it was. That was the old token, so I'm talking nonsense. But yeah, basically they created their own sort of chain off from this to try and develop their own area. And you're going to see a lot more of that. So when we talk about XDC, we're seeing something very early as a project in the technology in itself, a technology in terms of its mainnet and everything, still developing, still learning. But what we are seeing, and what we covered in recent videos of XDC as well, is these really powerful integrations, these link ups, these partnerships, which are really standing out. So when we look at the complexities of the next few years, and certainly when we go towards the 2030 goals from Agenda 30, the World Economic Forum's UN program of sustainability development, there's a lot of talk about ESGs, the environmental, social aspects of things. XDC is one of the forefront runners of that from its sustainability perspective, its speed, its green processes, etc. But now building these partnerships, these leverages, if you like, to really take itself to a massive level. So we must look at the long term. We must understand that these trade markets are huge already. They can be increased significantly, and they can also be massively sped up with the use of the technologies that we've mentioned, one of those being hugely related to blockchain. But all the other ones that we just mentioned are also infused in that. So we have to look forwards. Yes, the market is also dictated to by announcements like these, announcements like the one we've seen with SBI, which has obviously had an impact on the XDC price, you know, in the last few days. Not giant, but certainly made an impact because people are excited and interested about it. And obviously going onto SBI holding helps to be able to use that from the exchange perspective. But when these bull cycles kick in, you know, I'm hoping that many people have learned their lessons from the last few years, and I'm sure people will go for the nonsense coins and the ones that don't have utility, marketing, etc. behind them. But actually the real utility ones, when people finally realize like what's actually coming between 2025 and 2030, not just from the market perspective, but the world technological advancements, the integrations kicking in, the next 10, 15 years, guys, are going to be absolutely giant in this space. And why argue or get concerned that the XDC price is low when you can see their pattern, you can see their journey, you can see how early they are, but then identifying all the big things ahead of them to go, actually, I'm not going to be a millionaire overnight unless you're putting really crazy numbers in there, obviously, like some people can do or do. The point being is that when you look in the advancement of this, I'm holding XDC personally for the long run, for the next 5-10 years, because I know what's coming. I've been in a multitude of these different industries and spaces to know what's coming, certainly from the technological aspects of it. And when I see what XDC is capable of doing, what they are doing now and in the future, it ticks all the boxes for me. And it's not, as I said, it's not just XDC. I don't just hold XDC. I hold loads of different ones for specific reasons, whether it's my personal information and knowledge that I have because I've worked in the spaces or I understand what industries and what they're trying to do, or whether it's a project like this where I'm like, okay, this is, trade finance, didn't know much about at all. But when I started learning over the last few years about the spectrum of it, the size of it, and what's XDC's like formatting in this, it became really significantly powerful in my head to understand that actually it's a huge network opportunity and a lot more projects and companies are coming into it. So as that builds, the price point itself, I'm not fussed about right now. I'm just happy to be buying it under 10 cents. I want to get the lower opportunities. We'll talk about it in a second in the chart. But the instruments are there, the technologies are there, guys, to really enhance this ecosystem. And we're going to see some very, very exciting moves, not just with XDC, but the whole blockchain sphere in general as these years go by. So I'll leave a couple of links at the end of some of these bits of information and links to the articles and stuff like this, because it really is an absolutely powerful opportunity, this one, and a great partnership opportunity that they've announced in the last few days. So hopefully that's been a bit of a nice overview and something to definitely think about as a long-term investor, even a short-term investor, as to where we're going with this and how interesting and exciting this is to be a part of this and hold this token, or indeed add it as a new part of your portfolio, who knows. But for sure, let's jump into the chart of XDC right now, because as I said, we have had obviously some movements in the chart of XDC in the last few days based around that recent announcement. So let's jump into that. I'll get that up and running as well. So here we go, current price point of 3.6 cents. A few days ago we were back down at this 3 cent mark. So as I said, it's not giant numbers we're talking about here, but if you're a short-term investor, that's probably quite significant. And it's literally come out in the last few days as that SBI group announcements come, and obviously the last one, 4-year announcement's not really going to do too much, but it's still interesting to know. So a lot of people have obviously taken advantage because we had that rise from 3 cents all the way up here to 3.6. As that closed, we could start seeing, I'll zoom in a bit more so you can see this. As we closed, it took off still in a positive way, moving forward all the way up here to around 4.1 cents. So that's pretty relatively decent. In terms of numbers, let's just showcase that very quickly there. Approximately 30-ish% rise, which is quite a lot. Certainly if you're looking to trade in those small gaps. For me, I didn't take advantage of that. As I said, I'm just long-term holder. I'm just trying to accumulate at this moment in time. Don't want to be messing about personally to manage all those different things. I do have limit orders for accumulation, I will admit, and you guys have seen most of those areas that I've drawn in the past or indeed talked about in previous videos. But my point being here, just to reiterate, when that did do its rise, on the macro fib retracement level here, one of the most recent high points and one of the most recent low points, we can see there's a bit of a trade barrier here, a bit of resistance up at this 4.1 cents. So you could argue the rounded number of 4 cents was a bit too much for XDC to hold up there in the longer term. Now that's not to say, because of the rebound we've had and currently so far today, this slight further rejection downwards back to this 3.5 cent mark, that this could rebound and take itself up again as people get time over the weekend to read more articles and see this more and more and realize, oh, it did up itself, it's reduced itself. I mean, this has come down basically around about 12 or so%. So maybe not significant for too many investors to jump in, but just keep an eye on this, guys, because you can see some reflective patterns on this. In general, because of that spike up, because of the market that we're in, there is an argument to say that if we do rest ourselves around the 3.5 cent, you could see some sideways movement potentially, or it could potentially come and retest these lower region areas, which are almost confirmed really by two fib levels. One is the really long-term one the macro event here, and also there's a mid-term one here that you can see just around there, that they all kind of match up with this area. So in my opinion, and what I'm doing personally, is still just having those incremental limit order accumulation points. One of mine will be around the 3.3 cent mark, and I've always got these lower ones anyway. I'm always going to keep those in there with a bit of capital. The other one, if you're perhaps looking for something a bit lower than that, you could argue with the match-up points of the resistances that we had in the past, that this area just at the 3 cent or just underneath could be a grab point as well. So just keep an eye out for that. But as I said, we just got to be interested in this current area. This could be a good DCA opportunity to grab some, even because it's still under 5 cents in general, but do anticipate potentially that this bounces off, gets some resistance to try and retest this area again as well. Yeah, it's pretty common sense that these are kind of like various different scenarios, right? Unless there's a giant market crash and we come down even further, that's why I've got the lower orders. That's my reasoning behind it anyway. Still thinking and hoping that Bitcoin comes down to like $10,000-$12,000, who knows? But it could potentially be around the corner. Who we can just anticipate and guess all we want. But these are the areas of interest to me currently right now. Just to pinpoint a DCA aspect, the RSI on the 14 days, referring by the way down here, 14 days showing 59. That's a bit too high for me personally to accumulate at this point. So again, if you're new to it, just bear that in mind. What I meant by DCA is that if you are thinking that we might see these upward trends, it could be an opportunity to have a small amount in there. That's not what I'm doing personally. I'm going to be waiting a bit more because the 28 days showing 52. This is too middle ground for me. I like to see these around the 40 mark and lower for any bite points, which kind of indicates around here why I had these lower buy areas, and particularly around here where you see the lower infrastructure of the RSIs. So this like 34 and 38 respectively on the 14 and 28 day indicates to me that there's more upward aspect than there is downward, and I can start measuring points if I was a trader to say that, oh, it's quite easy for me to identify the doubles either through price range or visually, or to confirm with the RSIs. But because we're now on that downward trend and trying to stabilize it, I'm just going to be waiting a few days for any ad hoc purchases other than my limit orders that might come in as well. So that's just where it is. We're up on the week, understandably, we've already talked about that. We're still down on the month. The others are looking still green. So XDC, compared to a lot of the other assets, is still doing quite well, to be honest. It's in general, you could argue, it's still in an upward trend. But is it stabilizing? Is it a bit of a misunderstanding on the visual representation? That will remain to be seen. I think we'll see a lot more data as the month of June closes out, so we can get a full month's interesting information and data from the moves that we've had to see if that goes into green. That will then solidify the point that actually XDC is a really good, confident token at the moment, in the sense that people are starting to really realize it and hold it in the long run. There's not too much jumping around with XDC. A lot of people are really believing that, and a lot more people are becoming more aware of it, which is great, especially as we come to the new bull run where we'll have loads of holders. We know the wallet numbers are increasing significantly on XDC all the time, but as that bull cycle kicks in, and when people are hopefully this time around looking at the proper utility tokens, the ones that are really going to generate the technological advancement in finance, particularly trade finance, XDC will be one of those, and we'll see the rewards collectively as we jump up to hopefully previous heights and beyond, because the last big one was at 20 cents. I do anticipate in the longer run of the next big bull cycles that we could get towards that 50 cent mark, maybe $1 potentially, but I do see that a bit further in the future. But certainly in the next couple of years we could start seeing these adventurous numbers. But first of all, we need the economy to fix itself, the world to start being a bit more peaceful to each other. Well, that never happens, does it? But we can at least hope and know that at some point something's got to give. And I do see that in 2024 to 2025, as the RTGS, the new financial system, has its full integration over to digital, and the new messaging services and the new blockchain systems. That's when I feel like we're going to see a really big turnaround. So let me know what you think about all of this in the comments below. It's been a pleasure to do this video as always. I'm going to do a few more tonight, staying down by the coast. I've got a bit of time and quietness in the camper van to jack through loads of different videos and get some other topics and discussions out there and I'm looking forward to it. So hopefully see you on those ones. Leave the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one. Thanks for listening. Bye bye.